I've discovered over talking with several people and given a couple of different workshops that not a lot of people actually know how to properly stitch. And the reason why this might be is because hand sewing is actually becoming somewhat of a very rare art. The way that I compare hand sewing to machine sewing is if you're machine sewing, you're on automatic. If you're hand sewing, you're driving a stick. In other words, you have much more individual control over each individual stitch, and that can actually make a quite big difference in the end result of your tailored garment. So what I'm going to do is teach you how to stitch. The tools I'm going to be using for this are a piece of scrap linen, a very large needle so that way it's easier for the camera to pick it up, my handmade leather thimble, which goes on the middle finger, and I have a pin cushion here with different pins and needles on it. Also later on I'm going to be using a thread nipper. This thread nipper goes on the ring finger and lays over the four fingers here and is open and closed with the thumb and forefinger. This nips your thread and even takes out bad seams if you need to quickly take them out. So first you're going to notice that I'm not actually holding any thread with this needle. I'm going to show you how to insert the needle and take it out, and you're going to find out that by doing this method it's going to be much more quick. Also, the left hand is very important in stitching. The reason why is because think of this as like the tension foot for your sewing machine. The same way that a tension foot for a sewing machine moves the fabric through, so does this. In fact, this actually gives you more control because you can manipulate the angle of the fabric as you're stitching. So first of all, let me go ahead and do a couple of demonstration stitches first so I can show you what I'm talking about. Notice I'm not even moving on the fabric. I'm just putting the stitch through over and over again. What I'm showing you here is what the right hand is doing. The right hand, you put the needle into the fabric with the forefinger and thumb. You push the needle through with your middle finger. And the third motion is that you pull the needle back out with your thumb and forefinger, and then you pull the thread out. Now let's show you what the left hand does. The left hand acts as like a combination of the foot of the sewing machine and your hands manipulating the fabric and changing the angle of it as you sew. So let's go ahead and demonstrate how I would sew and continue on going forward. I insert the needle. I push the needle through with my middle finger. I lift the needle out. Then I start forward and do the same thing over and over again. And as you see, my left hand is gently nudging the fabric forward little by little. Things that I am not doing. I am not pushing the needle through to the other side of the fabric and pulling it out. This is a bad thing to do. Not only does it take quadruple the amount of time to do an individual stitch, but at the same time it's also making it less accurate for you to put the stitch back through the fabric where you started out. After I pull it out, I might be in the right area and I would have to check both sides, and doing this 1,000 times is not fun. So now I'm going to actually use thread. First of all, you have to learn how to tie off your thread in a knot. As you can see, the thread has a small knot at the end with about 1/8 of an inch tail after it. This is for keeping the thread secured on the fabric as you begin. I'm going to go ahead and create a knot. Wet the fingers just a bit. Wrap the thread around your forefinger, and underneath make sure you have a little bit left over. Don't put it at the very end. Roll your thumb over your forefinger and then pull your left hand through. And as you can see, a knot formed on the end of the thread. Then you trim off the tail to about 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to do it again for you. It may take some time to get used to doing that. It's always easier to have your hands with a grip, so therefore wet the fingers. Sometimes you'll end up with a little tangle on the end. This is alright, but it's not desired. You don't want to have a lot of bulk. Next, we're going to make some stitches. I'm going to commit a cardinal sin just for this demonstration and show you how far away to place your stitches by marking with this fountain pen. First of all, I'm going to make a very light line. Then, at the end of that line, I'm going to make a mark. This is where I'm going to start. From there, I'm going to mark a dot every 1/8 of an inch. Wherever you see a dot, that's where there's going to be a stitch. You want your stitches to be close to each other, but not so close in that it bunches the fabric up or makes it too tight. Now, as I start out, I'm going to enter the needle into the fabric, go 1/8 of an inch, push through, come back, and there's your first stitch. Now, after the first stitch that you make, you want to loop back. This is creating what's called a tack. A tack is when you make a stitch and loop it around at least 2 or 3 times, so that way you can have a strong beginning. Also, something I forgot to mention, as you pull through, you'll notice the loose end of the thread is over here. It's not in the fabric, which means I am not doubling up my thread. These are single threaded stitches. I'm going to continue on making some stitches now. I'm not going to show you the details of what I'm doing. I just want you to pay attention to how I'm pushing the needle through and how I'm moving the fabric as I go. So as you can see, I've started a row of stitches, and these stitches are 1/8 of an inch apart. The beginning of the stitch ends where I left off, and if I were to continue on down this line, it would make a clean row of stitches all the way down. The next video is going to detail this stitch, which is the most common stitch, called the back stitch, and then I'll show you some different stitches in further videos. And that is how to properly make a stitch. Once you get good at this, and it takes some time, if you can time this, you'll know where you stand as far as how long it takes, but being accurate is much more important than being quick. As you practice this, you will get quicker without having to forfeit your accuracy. It's much more important to be accurate than quick. So thank you for watching the video, and I hope this clearly demonstrates how to accurately perform hand stitching.